am Kristal Hart, and we are at the New York City Vietnam Veterans Memorial here at 55 Water Street in New York City. And this is in recognition of all those from Vietnam who have died or are suffering from the deadly effects of Agent Orange. Agent Orange was a herbicide used by the U.S. military to control vegetation and foliage that provided coverage for the enemy. It was called Agent Orange due to the band around the storage barrel. Well, over 58,000 died in Vietnam. Over 10 times that have died from ailments of Agent Orange after coming home. With us, our president of VVA 126, Fred Gazier. Fred, tell me, today's Agent Orange, recognition of Agent Orange, just your thoughts?
Well, today's a very special day. It's to recognize Agent Orange and what has happened since then. 58 years ago, Agent Orange was sprayed in Vietnam. When Agent Orange was sprayed, our government said it was a safe product. They said it was no problem. As the years went by, the no problem became a problem, as we've had veterans that have died over the years. In Vietnam, we had about 58,479 plus veterans killed in action. Since Vietnam, we have over 400,000 veterans that have died from Agent Orange related disease, and it keeps on climbing. That statistic is a VA statistic and is an official statistic. Agent Orange is a disease, as an illness of various points that will follow us and has followed generations for to come. I happened to learn at a convention 2 weeks ago that Agent Orange has got in the 7th generation of persons. That's, again, an official point. 7 generations. Today, as we think about Agent Orange, I think it's time that our country thinks about its veterans. Veterans of the U.S. military went to war protecting America and protecting its citizens. I think it's time that America protected its veterans. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. To my veteran brothers and sisters, welcome home. My name is Mike Marino, and I am honored to be your host for the 3rd Agent Orange Day event here in New York City. Before we get to a guest speaker and keynote speaker, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I was a combat infantryman in Vietnam, and we did a lot of things I'd rather not talk about. I remember very clearly one day while I was on guard duty at a fire base, Bastogne, which is on a very high hilltop overlooking the Asheville Valley. That was in the jungles of Vietnam. I saw a small plane. It looked like a crop duster. It was spraying a fine mist over the valley floor below me. I remember saying to myself, why are they fertilizing the jungle? Many years later, I learned that plane was spraying Agent Orange. 20 million gallons of Agent Orange was sprayed in Vietnam. The very next day, we went on search and destroy mission down into that very same valley. We stayed in that valley hunting the enemy for several weeks. I was definitely exposed to Agent Orange. Today, I now suffer from ischemic heart disease and type 2 diabetes. This event is very special to me. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome New York City Department of Veteran Services Chief of Staff, Cassandra Alvarez.
Thank you, that was really beautiful. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, veterans and supporters. Today, as we gather here at Vietnam Veterans Plaza in the heart of Lower Manhattan, we carry with us the memory of those who have suffered and continue to suffer from the devastating effects of Agent Orange and burn pit illnesses. Today offers us an opportunity to honor the brave souls who stood toe-to-toe with these invisible enemies long after their tour of duty came to an end. As former Mayor Ed Koch remarked at the dedication of this solemn monument, what we do here tonight begins to undo that terrible injustice. What we do here tonight is much more than lighting a glass wall of letters. We have heard the voices of a lost generation. We have opened the eyes of a new generation to the lessons of the past. We have opened the arms of this great city to Vietnam veterans from across America. Today, once again, we open the arms of this great city to our Vietnam veterans. We remember their service and the sacrifice of our fellow New Yorkers, the 1,741 heroes from the 5 boroughs who gave their lives, and the 250,000 men and women from New York State who served in Vietnam. May we never forget all that this generation gave for our country. However, today, we must also acknowledge the profound impact of Agent Orange, which claimed the lives of almost 8 times that number, 400,000 souls who, after returning home, readied themselves for a new battle. We are here to remember them, to honor them, and to bring awareness to the ongoing struggles faced by those afflicted by Agent Orange-related illness. At the same time, we can look to our left and right and see the bravery, the commitment, and the unyielding service of those who served in Vietnam. Men and women who daily demonstrate their resilience, offer their mentorship, and dedicate themselves to the ideals that define the American spirit. Men like Richard Rice, who is here with us today, a storied 30-year Army career. Mr. Rice's journey began in the 82nd Airborne Division before he ventured into Special Forces and served in units of immense distinction in the Vietnam War. We salute Mr. Rice and every single veteran who answered the call and served this great nation in this time of need. So at this time, it is my privilege to present a proclamation from the Mayor of the City of New York, Mr. Eric Adams, a powerful symbol of recognition and appreciation for those who put this together today, and that is Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 126. This proclamation serves as a testament to the tireless efforts of this chapter in raising awareness about Agent Orange-related illnesses and their dedication to ensuring that the sacrifices made by our veterans are never forgotten. And so I'm going to read what's on the proclamation here. Whereas, since the founding of our nation, New Yorkers have stood up to defend our democratic ideals and the freedoms that we far too often take for granted by serving in every branch of our armed forces. We owe the safety and the strength of the 5 boroughs of the United States to these brave men and women who have proudly protected and defended our country. Today, I am pleased to join the Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 126, in New York as it sponsors its 3rd Agent Orange Remembrance and Awareness Day event at the Vietnam Veterans Plaza in Lower Manhattan. Now, therefore, I, Cassandra Alvarez, on behalf of Eric Adams, Mayor of the City of New York, do hereby proclaim today, Saturday, August 19, 2023, in the City of New York as Agent Orange Remembrance and Awareness Day.
It's good to be back home in New York City. I remember I was born and raised here, and I remember as a kid, I used to come down here in this area sometimes when I was a kid, leaving school or playing hooky. I would come down here, go to 42nd Street, catch the movies, and I went to a Catholic school. So they were always wondering, where is he at? Where is he going? But before I start, I wanted to have my right hand over here, my wife, Jackie Charsaga Garcia. Jackie's a retired lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. She spent 21 years in the Corps, and Air Force, and she is a graduate of the Air Force Academy of '85. Jackie has to put up with me so much. So I think it was really appropriate that she says a little bit about what she's going through as a result of what I'm going through. Jackie?
Hello, everybody. I have to adjust this. I'm a little bit on the short side. We just wanted to let you know that we flew all the way from Florida today to be here with you. It is quite an honor for both of us because we love you. We feel for you. We cry for you. And my Danny has just recently, as many of you, has just recently received his 100% service-related disability. It's been a very, very long time coming. And all I can say is that we're just so happy to be here, honored to be here, and even though it was a quick up and back, we wouldn't want to miss this. So we want to thank the chapter here and for Fred for inviting us. And the other thing that we want you to know is sometimes when you're dealing with PTSD, your family is dealing with PTSD, and I know I'm talking to the choir, but when you see me up here with Danny, it's because sometimes he just needs me there to put my hand on his back. He is a strong man, he is a man of God, but yet we all need that comfort because of the things that we are going through. I see the Gold Star family members, I see the Korean War, the Korean veterans, I see the United War Council, I see the chapter, I see our active duty Marines, which I want to acknowledge you all as well for being here. And there's so many others that I can't say enough about. But thank you for giving us this time, and I yield the floor to my distinguished and my loving husband, Danny Garcia.
Isn't she beautiful? I just want to tell you the truth. I don't want to tell you any stories. I feel like I'm broken because of what I go through. I didn't know anything about Agent Orange or PTSD. And when I heard about it, I didn't want any bennies at all. I didn't want anything. I didn't want to go. I didn't want any rewards or anything. I just wanted to get well. I wake up in the middle of the night, every night. Bed is soaking. My t-shirt is soaking wet. I go through the diabetes thing, and it's so many rip-offs, your eyes. I can see you, but it's kind of fading. High blood pressure, low blood pressure. I mean, I'm 78 years old. And I find that the only thing that has sustained me through all of this, day and night, and still walk by foot across the United States and around the world, and still donate money to various charities, and still walk for my veterans, brothers and sisters, police officers, because I'm also a former police officer out of San Diego. I've seen so much of my friends, my brothers and sisters, leave this world. I've had to sometimes be by their side as they were passing. So when I walk for them and for you. Yeah, 52 million steps, more than 52 million. Been abducted by Palestinians in the Middle East. Tornadoes, mudslides, snakes, wild dogs. I go through all of that. People. Jackie, a lot of people wanted me to write a book, and we wrote a book, and the book is called Marines Don't Cry. But this Marine has cried. And Jackie, when she was doing the interview, had to deal with what I was going through, the PTSD, because I was angry, very angry, and I was very difficult for me to go through the book and tell everyone what I've gone through. But this was a God thing. God wanted me to do this. So we did it. It took 5 years to write it. And when she was writing it, she was dealing with breast cancer. The bottom line is, we don't quit. We don't quit! Hoorah! We go and we go and we do and we do. And all the way we hold on to Jesus and we thank Him for giving us another moment, not just another day. I'm not going to quit. We're about to do a concert for 4,700 people in St. Augustine, Florida on December the 8th to say thank you to Vietnam veterans, first responders, and family members all over the world. Gold Star mothers are coming from different parts of the states so we can say thank you to them because they paid a price too. Could you stand up, ma'am? The Gold Star ladies. I salute you and we salute you. You paid a big price. I'm not going to say much more. Vietnam was, I don't know, man. I don't even know how I got there. Oh, I know how I got there, but I sure wanted to get out of there. I also served during the Cuban crisis back in '63, during the Bay of Pigs and the missile crisis. So I've been out there and I haven't stopped. And you know what I learned? When I thought that it was over with after Nam, that the war had stopped, I realized I was involved in a spiritual war. There's a bad guy out there spiritually that is trying to bring us down. But with Jesus, we already have the victory. So we can make it. We can go all the way. We can keep going. And we need to hang on to each other. We need to come together. Because nobody can stop us when we do that.
List I'm going to read is, unfortunately, in the previous list. I could keep on reading here probably for the next hour in people I know, veterans that have passed away because of Agent Orange and the related disease. But I'm just going to say a few, and many on this list are very personal to me. Al Bach, U.S. Navy, Korea, and Vietnam. John W. Bagg, brother of Harvey Bagg. Isaac Bettino, Army 12th Infantry. Leo Neal Crawley, friend of Bill Nelson. John Chaplin, friend of Richard Steiner. Raymond Coder, friend of Mike Marino. Tony Lee Crawley, friend of Catherine Cross. Thomas Dulce, my cousin, who suffered for 3 to 4 years from Agent Orange, very, very debilitating disease. Richard Darling, friend of Mike Marino. James Duncan, friend of Michelle. Bill Gwaltney. Bill was my roommate in the Air Force. Bill went to Vietnam 1 month after I served with me. We both were flight engineers. Unfortunately, Bill passed away 4 years ago from Agent Orange related disease. David Hawkins, Army 101st Cavalry. Joe Ingino, Southern District Director, many, many years fought Agent Orange related illnesses. Unfortunately, Agent Orange went past Joe onto his family and some of his children, who now today suffer from the effects of Agent Orange. Max Gesto, Bill Jones, William Lucas, Marines. Barb Marchese, my brother-in-law, suffered for over 10 years by multiple Agent Orange disease.
With this Richard Rice, Green Beret, am I correct?
Correct.
Vietnam. So you were right in from the very beginning of this Agent Orange. Could you tell us about what happened?
Well, for the most part, we didn't have a whole lot of knowledge at the time of what was going on with Agent Orange. We knew there were some activities, and slowly it came down to us that they were using it to deforest thick jungle that the North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong had been hiding in during the war. They'd come out, they'd fight, and then they'd run back into the jungle. So they were using it to defoliate the forests. And they asked us, as part of a secondary mission to some of the things that we did, to come back in through that area and look at it and give them what they called at the time a BDA, or bomb damage assessment. And so we'd walk back from the area that we'd been working in, we'd come through that deforested area. Sometimes it was still wet from the Agent Orange that they had sprayed. And it was an eerie experience because anybody that's been to the jungle knows jungles are always noisy. They're a living, breathing thing. And we'd walk into those portions of jungle where the Agent Orange or the defoliation spray had been, and there would be nothing. It would be silent, almost like a silent movie. We're walking through, there's no bird sounds, there's no monkeys, there's no animals of any kind, and virtually there's just nothing there. And sometimes the leaves had been deforested, but sometimes the leaves were still there. They were in the process of decaying because of the deforestation. And it was just a very eerie experience.
And was it not well thought out, or did they didn't believe that? Did they not know that something like this would happen, or was it sort of just all experimental in its own way?
I think it was a knee-jerk reaction because the ground commanders in Vietnam understood that these areas of heavy jungle were being used by the enemy to fight us and then hide in, and so they called for anything that was available. And the only thing that was on the shelf at that time was there was Agent Orange, there was an agent they called Blue, and I think another one they called Purple. Who knows where they make up these names from. And I'm sure there's a long chemical name for each one of these. But they just called for whatever was available at the time, and nobody had time to say, okay, let's do long-term tests. This is something we've got to get to the troops in the field to help them win the war. And so they just kind of did this knee-jerk reaction and came up with Agent Orange. Who knows? I don't think anybody did it with malintent in mind, but it was not well thought out.
Does something like this become a war crime?
It has not that I'm aware of, although there has been calls for that. But as I mentioned in some remarks that I made earlier, there's been unintended consequences for every war. And we don't make light of it, but we need to be able to recognize it. And in this case, for Agent Orange, it's now being recognized, and they're working on the same thing for wars that have occurred since, like the Gulf War, the Desert Shield and Desert Storm, that also had toxic, not Agent Orange, but toxic chemicals involved that harm troops unintentionally. To give you a little background on me, when I joined the Army Special Forces, there were 36 of us that went through training together at Fort Bragg. To me, it'll always be Fort Bragg. It will not be Fort Liberty. But we went through training together at Fort Bragg, and we went to Vietnam together, 36 of us. At the end of the first year, there were 16 of us left. At the end of the second year, there were 8 of us left. Unfortunately, of the 8 that were remaining, 3 are dead due to Agent Orange, and 1 is suffering to Agent Orange also. So I'm lucky I'm on the Agent Orange registry, but it didn't affect me, although I think at times I took showers in that stuff at various locations in Vietnam, because it was used as a defoliant to take away the jungle that the North Vietnamese Army and the Viet Cong had been using throughout Southeast Asia to hide in. I don't believe in my heart that there was an intent to harm any American soldiers, I just don't think they thought it through far enough to understand what the repercussions were going to be. Now, that being said, I think probably in every conflict that has ever existed, there have been unintended consequences. Not to make light, but probably when Hannibal crossed the Alps with elephants, there were unintended consequences. I'm not sure what they were, but every battle that's ever been fought has had unintended consequences. I've had members of my family that were in World War I that were affected by the chlorine or the mustard gas as they knew it back then. Later on in World War II, there are incidents that had occurred, but people just sucked it up and did it, as did the veterans of Vietnam. So every conflict has had something like this, but it needs to be recognized, it needs to be accepted. These names need to be remembered, because when the name is spoken, that person is never forgotten. And that's an important thing for all of us to do, for the brothers and sisters that have gone before us.
What does somebody do, or how do they contact? You know how they contact anybody to?
Well, there are veterans chapters around the country that people can talk to about this. If they think they've been exposed to Agent Orange, because a lot of veterans simply go through life and they never apply for the benefits because they don't feel they deserve them, when in fact they really do. And so if they haven't, they need to go back. If they've been exposed or think they've been exposed, they need to go back through the Veterans Administration and get recognized. I didn't know that for a long time, but what I did was I went back, they looked at my records, we figured out exactly what times I was in what places and where, and I'm on the Agent Orange registry. Luckily for me, so far I haven't been affected, but so many of my friends have. So people can get assistance there. People that just want to help in a general sense can go to the local veterans organizations and approach them and ask to be put on the donor list to help against Agent Orange or whatever it is they'd like to support.
Well, thank you, and thank you for your service.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.